Hello, this is Diversity and Inclusion Lesson 2 walkthrough video. I'm Captain Henry Watts at the Edwing Army Training Centre, Pirbright. So following on from DNI 1, DNI 2 is a build-up to later on in the course where the recruits have to hack through some thorny issues of values and standards and try to decide together how they're going to respond when faced with a challenge to their values and standards. So in this lesson, we are trying to equip them with the knowledge to go into those scenarios. It goes hand in hand with critical thinking, which is on the military studies program. And essentially, it looks at some of the blind spots that we have and that they might have as recruits in their thinking, with a focus on groupthink, bystander culture, and particularly the role that social media can play in shaping this. So we start with a riddle. And if you want to read and figure it out for yourself, press pause now. When you do this with the recruits, you get them to read it, and then you ask them, okay, how do you explain this? Who is the surgeon or the doctor? And many people often say, well, it might be the grandfather who's got confused and thinks this is his son. It might be the dad that's come back from the dead, or he hasn't actually died and he's come back to operate on his son. And very few people will actually get the answer, which is that the mother is the surgeon. And that's because of gender stereotypes, because of the genders that we associate with these jobs, which are socially constructed. And though some people have pointed out, that statistically there are fewer women as doctors or surgeons than men, and that maybe the wording in the riddle misleads you, none of these reasons really accounts for the fact that some people just don't get a very simple answer. And some people just take a long time as well to get it, even if they do get it eventually. So there's more going on here, and we need to address that. This next activity is also about addressing how perceptions are shaped, and particularly by those immediately around you. It's called the circle of trust. So to run this, you just get the recruits to write down the names of people they most trust, say 5 will do. And then 2 minutes later, you just press this, and then you get each recruit to write a tick down next to the person who is the same gender as them, the same religious beliefs, same nationality, etc. And if you have more ticks, then that means you prefer to associate with people, or you prefer to trust people who are more similar to you, which is no bad thing. People tend to prefer to surround themselves with shared interests, people who share their interests with things that are familiar. In this little eye there, I frame it as the equivalent of ordering bangers and mash over sushi. Sometimes home comforts are nice, but there is a massive downside to this attitude, that birds of a feather flock together. And one is that you tend to reinforce and distort your own perceptions. That this attitude can crowd out useful influences, and also it can lead you to make judgments on people when actually they're not how they look and what they seem, which is what we covered in the last lesson. Perceptions are also influenced by social media, and so we're going to play a game and add some competition into this as well, into the mix, to help the recruits get this point. So you get the recruits into teams, and then in this activity we'll show 4 separate YouTube pages and 4 profiles for 4 different people. And what you want them to do is to guess the characteristics of each person. So there's 1 point for each characteristic correctly identified. Recruits can use their devices to research throughout if they want. So for example, the first person, the recruits might want to, so you click the timer here to set them going for 2 minutes, and they go together and discuss what they think. And they might research, KSI on their phone and say, try to figure out who that is so that they can make deductions about this YouTube person and their profile, how old they are, what's their nationality, gender, etc. And they'll go through each of them after 2 minutes. Some clues here at the top and down the left-hand side, as well as the recommended videos in the middle. This one's mine. And there's the answers at the end, and you just get them to put a tick next to all the ones that they got right. You can add, scores here. Say group 1 got 10, group 2 got 2, got 1, etc. And then make it a competition. It makes it a bit more engaging, a bit more fun. But what does it mean at the end? What's the takeaway being that while people do shape their online profiles by the choices they make online, they are also shaped by their online profiles, which are owned by things outside of their control, namely big tech companies. So it's about making them aware that the personalized ads and the recommended videos or can also mean personalized news, recommended commentary, and this can help to shape a worldview, opinions, and perceptions of other people that they might have to meet, in the army. And it's about making them aware of that. Before we go on here in the next section to discuss the impact of this, and to really analyze what this means to them personally and how it can affect team performance and it can affect perception within a team. So give them 5 minutes to look at these questions on the bottom left here. What are information bubbles? What are echo chambers? We'll talk about the difference next. 5 minutes, go away, answer these questions, and then back brief to the training team, and pick out some answers and get them to discuss each other as a class rather than just with you. And then we move on to the next section, which is what these concepts are. And you can find out more about this in Matthew Said's book, Rebel Ideas. But the information bubble is essentially a filter bubble where information is constrained and you see only a very narrow selection of media and news. An echo chamber is about implanting a level of distrust that you feel towards those who disagree with you, which is often influenced by key personalities, ideological leaders, and things like this, which makes you more hostile rather than less, even though you might interact with information that's different to what you are familiar with. But essentially, the negative consequences of these two concepts and not being aware of them are on the right-hand side, and that's what we need to make the recruits aware of. All of this feeds into a skill that we need to develop as soldiers and as recruits of widening perspective. So here, this final activity, you will ask the recruits to watch this video covering Sergeant Blackman, Marine A. So I wanted to link this directly in ProWise, but there's a bit of a technical fault. So if there's no link attached here, you just need to Google this, go to a Sky News video, and then just get the recruits to watch that, and then go to a discussion activity on the next page where groups separate into different characters in this scenario, and they have to go through what these people might be thinking and feeling. And this isn't in any way an attempt to legitimize any particular position. It's just thinking about the problem from a different point of view and an attempt to understand the human impact of events from all sides. So the recruit's back brief to you, and you have a class-wide discussion, hopefully. And there's some more information there if you click I. And then finally, we look at how to deal with difficult situations in D&I 3. This is where we look at those scenarios of bullying and harassment, and the recruits witness them, and they have to navigate through them. So this picture is from the Three Wise Monkeys, where you see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and it's used to refer to those who turn a blind eye to events, which is something we want to steer them away from.